The cathedral bells of Seville tolled like a death knell, their deep bronze echoes vibrating through the vaulted arches, as if the very stones of the ancient city mourned what was about to unfold. Harlow Sinclair gripped the bouquet of white roses so tightly the thorns bit into her palm, a sharp sting that barely registered against the thunder in her chest. And then she saw her, standing there in the front pew, elegant and unyielding as the Sierra Nevada peaks they'd once hiked as girls. Everly Reyes, the ghost of every stolen kiss under olive groves, the architect of Harlow's shattered heart. Harlow's breath caught, a ragged hitch that silenced the murmur of the congregation. The priest paused mid-vow, his kind eyes flickering with confusion behind wire-rimmed glasses, while the groom, tall, broad-shouldered Javier Reyes, with his easy smile and family fortune, turned to her, brow furrowed in that boyish way that had charmed her into this madness. "Mi amor," he whispered, his voice a gentle lilt of Andalusian warmth. But Harlow couldn't speak. Her world had narrowed to those piercing green eyes across the aisle, eyes that had once whispered promises in the moonlit dorms of their boarding school, eyes that now held a lifetime of secrets she never imagined would collide like this. It was impossible. Everly was Javier's mother? The woman who'd borne him at 19, the single parent who'd clawed her way from teenage heartbreak to become a renowned architect restoring Seville's crumbling haciendas? Harlow's mind reeled back 2 decades, to the rain-slicked hills of the Sierra de Aracena, where the all-girls Academy of Santa Clara had been both prison and paradise. She'd been 16, a wide-eyed transplant from California, her parents shipping her off to toughen up after her brother's overdose back home shattered their golden suburb. Everly had been 18, a local girl with fire in her veins and a scholarship earned through sheer grit, her father a vineyard worker who died too young, leaving her to fend for a family that barely noticed. They'd met in the library, of all places, Harlow buried in dog-eared copies of Whitman, seeking solace in words that didn't judge, and Everly sketching blueprints for a future she'd build with her own hands. "You're drawing dreams," Harlow had said, sliding into the chair beside her, the scent of fresh ink and rain-soaked earth mingling like a spell. Everly had looked up, her dark lashes framing those green eyes, and grinned, a crooked, defiant thing that made Harlow's stomach flip. "Nah, I'm drawing escapes. What's yours look like?" From there, it unraveled like a well-tied knot giving way. Stolen afternoons in the olive groves behind the school, where the twisted trunks hid their laughter and the press of tentative hands. Everly taught her to climb the ancient trees, their branches groaning under the weight of fruit and secrets, while Harlow read her poetry that made Everly's tough shell crack just enough to let light in. "You're like the sun breaking through fog," Everly murmured one dusk, her fingers tracing Harlow's jaw as they lay tangled in wild grass, the world reduced to the rhythm of their breaths. It was innocent then, fierce and fragile. Kisses that tasted of salt and rebellion, promises etched in the dirt with sticks. Forever no matter what. But forever was a lie for girls like them. Santa Clara was a cocoon of Catholic rigidity. Nuns with rosaries like whips patrolling the halls, whispering of sin and salvation. When Harlow's parents discovered the inappropriate attachment, a crumpled note from Everly found in her laundry, they yanked her out mid-semester, bundling her onto a plane with lectures on duty and decorum ringing in her ears. "You're better than this phase," her mother had hissed, eyes averted, as if love could be a flu to sweat out. "Everly?" She vanished into the ether, a final letter smuggled out by a sympathetic groundskeeper. "Don't let them dim you, Sol de mi vida. Find your light." Harlow had clutched it until the ink faded, carrying it like a talisman through college heartbreaks and corporate ladders climbed in San Francisco's tech haze. Now at 27, she'd convinced herself the ache was scar tissue. Javier had been the antidote, charming, uncomplicated. The son of a family friend who'd reconnected her with Spain during a sabbatical. His proposal on a yacht off the Costa del Sol had felt like closure, a way to root herself in the land that had both broken and made her. "We'll build a life here," he'd said, slipping the ring on her finger, oblivious to the ghosts in her smile. And Everly? Harlow had Googled her once years ago. Reyes architecture, headlines about restoring the Alcazar, a poised woman in power suits, no hint of the girl who'd wept when they parted. She'd assumed Everly had moved on, married perhaps, built that family of stone and steel. Yet here she was, not a distant memory but flesh and blood, her son's soon-to-be mother-in-law. The realization hit like a flamenco heel to the gut. Javier's stories of his fierce mama, the woman who'd raised him alone after a youthful mistake, the architect who'd turned down suitors to focus on her legacy. It all clicked. The single mother narrative, the boarding school dropout who'd poured her pain into designs that echoed the curves of hidden courtyards. Everly had been 19 when Javier was born, pregnant at the end of their time at Santa Clara. The father a fleeting summer fling with a local boy, or so the sanitized version went. But Harlow knew better now. The timing was too cruel, the shadows too deep. The priest cleared his throat, the congregation shifting like a tide pulling back. Javier's hand squeezed hers, warm and steady. "Harlow? You okay?" His voice pulled her forward, but her feet were lead. Everly's gaze hadn't wavered. A storm brewing in those green depths. Recognition, regret, something sharper like accusation. How long had she known? Had she orchestrated this reunion? Or was fate the cruelest architect of all? Harlow forced a nod, her lips curving into a brittle smile as the vows resumed. "I do," she murmured when prompted, the words ash on her tongue. But as Javier kissed her, the cheers erupting like fireworks over the Guadalquivir, she felt Everly's eyes burning into her back. The reception awaited in the family hacienda, a sprawling estate of terracotta roofs and jasmine-draped patios, where toasts would flow and dances would spin under lantern light. But Harlow knew. This wedding wasn't the end of anything. It was the spark to a fire long banked. The drive to the hacienda blurred in a haze of silk skirts and champagne flutes clinking in the limo. Javier chattered about the flamenco troupe his cousins had hired, his arm around her shoulders like an anchor. "You went pale back there, amor." "Nerves." She nodded, leaning into him, the lie tasting like bile. How could she confess? "Your mother is the reason I know what love feels like, and why I fear it." They arrived as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, the hacienda glowing like a jewel in the Andalusian hills. Guests milled on the courtyard, laughter mingling with the strum of guitars, the air thick with paella's saffron scent and the tang of Rioja. Harlow slipped away for air, her gown whispering against the flagstones as she wandered to the edge of the garden, where bougainvillea climbed walls like veins of fire. The sea crashed distantly, a reminder of coasts where she'd once dreamed of sailing away with Everly. Footsteps crunched gravel behind her. She didn't turn, didn't need to. "Harlow." Everly's voice, low and roughened by years, wrapped around her like smoke. She whirled, heart slamming. Up close, Everly was both familiar and foreign. The same high cheekbones, the faint scar above her left brow from a childhood fall, but lines etched by laughter and loss, her frame lean from years of hauling blueprints and raising a son alone. At 35, she carried authority like a cape, but tonight, in a simple navy dress that hugged her like a second skin, she looked vulnerable, human. "You," Harlow breathed, the word a accusation and a prayer. "How? Why didn't you?" Everly stepped closer, the jasmine between them heavy as unspoken words. "Say it. Ask me." Her green eyes, so like Javier's but deeper, stormier, pinned Harlow in place. Harlow's fists clenched, thorns forgotten. "Did you know? When Javier introduced us, did you know who I was?" A beat. Then Everly's laugh, bitter, broken. "The first time he showed me your photo, I nearly dropped my coffee. Thought it was a trick of the light, some cruel joke from the universe." She reached out, then stopped, hand hovering like she feared Harlow might shatter. "But you came to Seville. You laughed at my table, shared stories of California fog. I told myself it was coincidence that you'd moved on. That I had." Harlow recoiled, the garden spinning. "Moved on? You left me a note and vanished. I thought you." Her voice cracked. "I thought you'd chosen safety. A life without us." Everly's face crumpled, the mask slipping. "I was 19, Harlow. Scared shitless. Pregnant, alone, with nuns breathing down my neck and a family that would have disowned me for that American girl. The father? Some boy from the village festival. A mistake to cover the truth of what I felt for you." She swallowed hard. "I pushed you away to protect you, to let you have the life I couldn't." The confession hung between them, heavier than the humid night air. Harlow wanted to scream, to shove Everly against the wall and demand the years back. Instead, tears burned hot tracks down her cheeks. "And now? You let this happen. Your son's wedding. My wedding." Everly's hand finally bridged the gap, cupping Harlow's cheek with a tenderness that undid her. "I tried to stop it. Told Javier you deserved better, That you were too bright for our dusty world. But he loves you. And God help me, so do I still. Her thumb brushed a tear away, lingering. Run if you want. But don't marry him thinking it's escape. It's just another cage. Harlow leaned into the touch, the world fracturing. The music swelled from the courtyard. Javier's voice calling her name faintly. Choices loomed like shadows, love, duty, the ghosts of what might have been. But in that moment, under the stars of Seville, she felt alive for the first time in years. The reception unfolded like a dream Harlow couldn't wake from. A whirlwind of clinking glasses and swirling skirts under strings of fairy lights that mimicked the Milky Way. Javier pulled her onto the dance floor, his hands sure on her waist as a guitarist strummed a sultry rumba. The crowd whooping as they spun. To us, he toasted later, his dark eyes earnest over tiramisu slices, oblivious to the storm brewing in her silence. She smiled, kissed his cheek, but her gaze drifted inevitably to Everly, seated at the head table, nursing a glass of vermouth, her laughter for aunts and uncles a performance as polished as her restorations. Harlow excused herself again, this time to the hacienda's library, a sanctuary of leather-bound tomes and flickering candlelight, shelves groaning with histories of conquistadors and poets who'd loved against the grain. She sank into an armchair, the weight of her gown pooling like spilled milk, and let the sobs come, raw, ugly things that shook her frame. Betrayal wasn't just Everly's silence. It was her own, the years she'd spent papering over the hollow with boardroom deals and casual dates, telling herself love like theirs was a youthful fever. The door creaked open, and there she was again, Everly silhouetted against the hallway glow, a bottle of Rioja in one hand, 2 glasses in the other. Thought you might need this. She didn't wait for invitation, crossing the room with that purposeful stride Harlow remembered from their hikes, pouring deep red pores that stained the crystal like blood o's. They drank in silence first, the wine tart on Harlow's tongue, loosening the knots in her chest. Tell me everything, she finally said, voice steadier than she felt. From the end. What happened after I left? Everly settled on the rug at her feet, back against the chair, knees drawn up like the girl who'd once sketched stars on her sneakers. The vulnerability cracked something in Harlow, a floodgate. The nuns found out about the baby before I could even process it. Called my mother, who showed up with a priest and a plan. Marry the father, keep it quiet. I said no, screamed it actually. Packed a bag and hitchhiked to Seville, crashing with my abuela until Javier came. She swirled her glass, eyes distant. Raised him in a one-room flat above a bakery, drafting plans by lamplight while he slept in a drawer. It broke me some nights, wondering if you'd hate me for choosing him over us. Harlow's hand found her hair, threading through the dark waves unbidden. A reflex from boarding school evenings braiding under desk lamps. I could have helped. If you'd written more than that note. And say what? Come claim your broken girl and her bastard kid? You had Stanford waiting, a life of sunsets and safety nets. I wouldn't drag you into my mess. Everly turned, her profile sharp in the candle flicker. But I watched you, you know. From afar. Social media, mutual friends from the expat crowd. Saw you graduate, land that tech job, smile in photos that never reached your eyes. Thought maybe I'd done right by you. The admission stung, a mix of relief and rage. Stalking? That's your version of moving on. Harlow pulled her hand back, but Everly caught it, holding fast. Not stalking. Surviving. Her voice dropped, raw as exposed rebar. Every design I draw, the courtyards with hidden fountains, the arches that curve just so, it's you. The way you moved, laughed. Javier teases me about it. Calls my buildings romantic follies. If only he knew. Harlow's pulse thrummed, the room shrinking to the space between them. And him? Does he suspect? Everly shook her head, releasing her hand but not the gaze. He's blind to it like all sons with their mothers. Sees me as the rock, not the ruin. She paused, sipping wine. But tonight seeing you in that dress saying those vows gutted me. Like burying the girl I loved all over again. The words hung electric. Harlow slid to the floor beside her, their shoulders brushing, the proximity a spark to dry tinder. I said them for him. For the life I thought I wanted, stable, sun-drenched, without the risk of shattering. She laughed hollow. But it's all ash now. How do I face him? Tell him the wedding's off because his mother makes my heart remember how to bleed. Everly's fingers traced her knuckles, a ghost of old intimacies. You don't have to decide tonight. Stay the weekend like planned. Let the dust settle. Javier's family, they're good people, loud and loyal. They'll embrace you, scars and all. Her touch stilled. Or go. Back to your fog, your freedom. I'll understand. But understanding wasn't absolution. As the night deepened, they talked until the candles guttered. Everly recounting Javier's first steps on construction sites, Harlow sharing the loneliness of Silicon Valley climbs, the lovers who'd paled against memory's glow. Dawn crept in, painting the library rose gold, when Javier's voice echoed from the hall. Harlow? Mama? Where's everyone? Panic flared. They scrambled up, smoothing skirts and stories, but the air between them hummed with unfinished business. The honeymoon suite awaited upstairs, all crisp linens and ocean views, but Harlow's feet carried her to the guest wing instead, claiming exhaustion. Javier frowned but relented, kissing her forehead. Tomorrow then. The world. Sleep evaded her, the hacienda's walls whispering like Santa Clara's winds. By morning the household stirred with breakfast bustle. Tortillas sizzling, coffee brewing strong as resolve. Everly was in the kitchen, apron tied over jeans, flipping eggs with a focus that belied the shadows under her eyes. Javier slung an arm around her, planting a kiss on her temple. My two favorite women. Ready for Gibraltar. Harlow forced cheer, but the sight twisted her. Mother and son, bound by blood and battles she'd never fully know. The drive south was a blur of highways flanked by cork oaks. Javier's playlist of Springsteen crooning about glory days. They picnicked at a mirador overlooking the strait, the Rock of Gibraltar looming like a sentinel across the water. To new beginnings, Javier said, clinking his water bottle to hers, his grin wide as the horizon. Everly watched from a blanket's edge, sketching idly in a notebook, the curve of the bay perhaps or the line of Harlow's neck. Their eyes met, a silent pact forming wait, watch, withstand. Back at the hacienda that evening, conflict brewed like a summer storm. Javier's aunt, a sharp-tongued matriarch with a penchant for meddling, cornered Harlow in the patio. He's smitten, that boy. But your eyes wander like a cat in heat. What's eating you, Nina? Harlow stiffened, the wine in her glass sloshing. Just wedding jitters. Adjusting to family. The aunt's laugh was a bark. Family's a forge, not a cradle. Everly knows. Raised that boy from nothing, turned down a dozen suitors for her work. Don't think you can waltz in and break what's solid. The words landed like barbs, guilt coiling in Harlow's gut. Was that her fear? Not just love's revival, but the betrayal of appending Javier's world for a ghost? She sought Everly later, finding her on the roof terrace, the city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. I can't do this, Harlow blurted, the night air cool on her heated skin. Lie to him. Pretend. Everly turned from the railing, her face illuminated by a single lantern, strong, sorrowful. Then don't. But whatever you choose, make it yours. Not for me, not for guilt. Their hands found each other again, palms pressing in a vow unspoken. Below, Javier laughed with cousins over cards, his joy a beacon Harlow both craved and couldn't claim. The betrayal wasn't Everly's alone. It was the lie they'd all lived, the paths diverged by fear. As thunder rumbled distant, Harlow pulled Everly close, not in passion, but in the quiet anchor of recognition. What if we tell him? Together. Everly's breath hitched, her forehead resting against Harlow's. He might hate us. Or understand. That's the gamble. The storm broke then, rain sheeting down in silver rods, driving them inside amid laughter and shouts. But in the deluge, Harlow felt the first stirrings of courage, a crack in the facade, light seeping through. The next days blurred into a tense idyll, mornings of market runs for figs and manchego, afternoons hiking the trails where Everly pointed out wild thyme and stories of her youth. Javier noticed the shift, the lingering glances, the way his mother and fiancé spoke in low tones over coffee. You two plotting world domination, he'd joke, but his eyes held questions. Climax crested on the eve of their departure, during a family dinner under the stars. Pie steamed on a long table, lanterns swaying in the breeze, when Javier raised his glass. To family old and new. His gaze on Harlow was tender, expectant. She couldn't breathe. The words clawed up her throat, spilling before she could stop them. Javier, I need to tell you something. About me. About your mother. The table fell silent, forks hovering. Everly's hand tightened on her napkin, green eyes wide with warning and wonder. Javier's smile faltered. What is it, amor? Harlow met Everly's gaze, drawing strength from the woman who'd built empires from ruins. 20 years ago at Santa Clara I fell in love. With her. She nodded to Everly, voice steady now. And I think. I never stopped. Gasps rippled, Javier's face draining of color. He looked between them, the pieces slotting with painful clarity. The shared silences, the sketches, the unspoken ease. Mama! His voice broke, boyish and bewildered. Everly rose, her chair scraping like a confession. It's true, Mijo. I was young, terrified. Pushed her away to give you a chance at normalcy. But seeing her again. It unearthed everything. Javier shoved back, plate clattering. You knew? This whole time. Betrayal etched his features, raw as fresh stone. Our wedding, our life, and you say nothing? He stormed out, the door slamming like a guillotine. The family erupted in murmurs, aunts crossing themselves, uncles averting eyes. Harlow reached for Everly, but she pulled away, face ashen. I told you. The cost. Rain started again, pattering on the awning like accusations. Harlow ran after him, finding Javier in the stables, saddling a horse with furious tugs. Javier, please. He whirled, eyes blazing. How long? Were you laughing at me? Pity-fucking the sun to get to her. No. The vulgarity stung, but truth cut deeper. It was real at first. Your kindness, this place. But I can't build on lies. He mounted, the horse snorting unease. Then go. Take your truths and leave us to pick up the pieces. With a kick he galloped into the night, hooves thundering like her fracturing heart. Everly found her there, soaked and shivering. Let him go. He needs space like I did once. They retreated to the library again, wine replaced by tea, the silence a bomb and a blade. I ruined it, Harlow whispered. Everly pulled her close, arms a fortress. We did. Together. But maybe that's the start. The hacienda felt hollow in the aftermath, a shell of celebration stripped to its beams. Javier didn't return until dawn, slipping and mud-spattered and silent, his eyes red-rimmed from more than rain. He avoided them both, breakfasts taken in his room, days spent in Seville overseeing a site, evenings lost to solitary walks along the river. The family tiptoed around the fracture, whispers of scandal laced with reluctant sympathy. Everly's stoicism a legend now cracked, Harlow the outsider who'd brought the quake. Harlow extended her stay, booking a solo room in the city, a pension overlooking the cathedral where it had all unraveled. She wandered the narrow calles by day, losing herself in the Giralda's spiral climb, the Alcazar's labyrinthine gardens, places Everly had restored, each tile a testament to her resilience. Guilt gnawed, but so did clarity. The wedding had been a bandage on a wound too deep for stitches, Javier's love a mirror reflecting the life she'd outgrown. Everly reached out first, a text at midnight, coffee? Neutral ground. They met at a tiny cafe in Triana, the gypsy quarter where flamenco pulsed from hidden patios, the air rich with churros and unspoken fears. She looked weary, hair loose and unbrushed, but her green eyes held a spark, defiant like the girl who'd scaled olive trees. Javier's talking to me again, she said over cortados, steam curling like questions. Blames me more than you. Says I should have warned him off from the start. Harlow stirred sugar she didn't need. The clink a metronome to her pulse. And you? What do you blame? Everly's laugh was soft, self-deprecating. Myself. For thinking time erases anything. For letting you walk into our lives without a map. She reached across the scarred wooden table, fingers lacing with Harlow's. But mostly for not fighting harder back then. For us. The touch grounded her. A lifeline in the emotional riptide. I blamed you for years. Then myself for running back to safety, for letting fear dictate. She squeezed, the cafe fading to just them. But here now, it's not too late, is it? For something real. Everly's gaze softened, the lines around her eyes crinkling with tentative hope. It's never too late to rebuild. But Javier, he's the foundation. We can't mortar over him. The reconciliation with Javier came slowly, engineered by Everly's quiet diplomacy. She invited him to dinner at the hacienda, just the three of them. No extended family circus, no wine to loosen tongues. Harlow arrived with trepidation, a bottle of California Zinfandel as peace offering. Her simple sundress a far cry from bridal finery. The table was set simply. Gazpacho chilled in bowls, lamb roasting with rosemary from the garden. The air thick with anticipation. Javier entered last, his frame filling the doorway, expression a mask of guarded neutrality. "Let's get this over with," he said, but took his seat, pouring wine with steady hands. Everly started, her voice even as fresco layers. "Mijo, I owe you the full story. Not the edited version I fed you growing up." She recounted Santa Clara without flinching. The groves, the notes, the terror of discovery. "Harlow was my son, but you were my world." Choices like that, they scar. Javier listened, jaw tight, eyes flicking to Harlow. When she spoke, her exile, the hollow years, the unintended collision, his shoulders eased fractionally. "I get it," he said finally, voice rough. "Love like that doesn't die easy. But you chose me, Harlow. Built something with me. Was it all fake?" "No." She met his gaze, unflinching. "It was real, your laugh, the way you see beauty in ruins. But it wasn't whole. I was half in love with a memory, and that's not fair to anyone." He nodded, slow, the weight lifting like fog off the river. "I hate it. The betrayal stings like hellfire. But I see how you look at her. How she lights up around you. If I force this, it'll poison us all." A ghost of his grin surfaced. "Besides, who'd want a bride who freezes at the altar? Bad luck." Laughter broke then, tentative, tear-streaked, but it cracked the ice. They talked until stars wheeled overhead. Javier sharing his own heartaches, the pressure of legacy, the fear of becoming his absent father. By dessert, flan wobbling like fragile trust, he raised his glass. To truths. And to letting go. The toast lingered bittersweet. Harlow felt the ache of loss. For the future sketched with Javier, the ease of his touch, but gratitude bloomed brighter. Betrayal had forged something stronger. Honesty unburdened. In the weeks that followed, boundaries redrew like Everly's blueprints. Javier returned to his sights, dating a botanist from Cordoba with a laugh like bells. Their friendship evolving into something fraternal, unromantic. "Your family still," he'd text Harlow. "Photos of restored patios captioned your fault. Now I see the poetry in plaster." Everly and Harlow? They courted cautiously, like restorers approaching a fresco. Walks in the Maria Luisa Park. Hands brushing on benches carved with lovers' initials. Dinners of tapas and truths. Everly's sketches now including Harlow's profile amid arched doorways. "This one's called Second Light," she'd say. Charcoal smudges on her fingers, green eyes alight. One evening atop the Metropole parasol, Seville's wooden honeycomb shading the Plaza de la Encarnacion. They stood shoulder to shoulder, the city sprawling below like a living mosaic. The sun dipped, gilding the Guadalquivir in gold, and Everly turned to her. "I designed this with you in mind, layers upon layers, hiding beauty in plain sight." Harlow's heart swelled, the past shadows yielding to present grace. "And now? What's next?" Everly pulled a small box from her pocket, not a ring but a key etched with olive leaves. "My flat overlooks the river. Room for two if you want. No cages, just us." Tears pricked, joy untainted by fear. "Yes." She kissed her then, soft, sure under the honeycomb sky. A seal on rebuilt foundations. Months later, Harlow sold her San Francisco shares, trading fog for flamenco rhythms. She joined Everly's firm, her tech-eye modernizing designs. Their partnership a blend of innovation and heritage. Javier visited Sundays, his botanist in tow, the table lively with banter and no ghosts. One crisp autumn day, they hiked the Sierra de Aracena, Everly leading, Javier teasing from behind, Harlow pausing at the olive grove overlook. The trees stood sentinel, gnarled and enduring, much like them. "Full circle," Everly murmured, her hand in Harlow's, Javier snapping a photo with a wink. "Not a circle," Harlow corrected, squeezing back. "A spiral. Upward." As the sun set, painting the hills in fire, they descended together, scarred but whole. In Spain's embrace, where love had first bloomed and nearly withered, they'd planted anew. Not perfect but human. Tender, tenacious, true. And in quiet nights, tangled in sheets overlooking the river's murmur, Harlow would trace Everly's laugh lines, whispering, "You were right. We escaped." Everly's green eyes, soft in the lamplight, would meet hers. Together this time. The bells of Seville tolled on, not in mourning but in quiet benediction. A city of secrets and second chances, where hearts once frozen learned to thaw.